Well, good morning. As Peter mentioned, I'm Karey Windbiel-Rojas with the University of California Statewide Integrated Pest Management Program, or UC IPM. I'm the Associate Director for Urban and Community Integrated Pest Management with the state and also an Area IPM Advisor. And Andrew, who can introduce himself when he gets up, but I will also introduce, he is our Urban Area IPM Advisor for the San Francisco Bay Area, and I cover the Sacramento metropolitan area. So we want to share with you today some case studies and some of the activities that we do and how we respond to our industry for pest control in California in our urban and community areas. And so we'll share a few sort of general themes and also go over for those who are not familiar with the statewide IPM program, who we are and what we do and how we address needs. So first off, UCIPM is a statewide program, and we are underneath the sort of umbrella of the University of California Division of Agriculture and Natural Resources. We often get asked um, how we coalesce and communicate with the different campuses. And our office at UCIPM is in Davis, but we are not UC Davis, which people get confused with. UC Davis is a campus and we are part of a division. And so the statewide program, and there are many other statewide programs like the statewide Master Gardener program, the 4-H program, food and nutrition, and many others. So UCIPM is one of those statewide programs. And so we have 30 or so employees, both staff and academics, who develop and deliver programs covering agriculture or urban community needs and natural resources throughout the state. And then UCA&R oversees also Cooperative Extension, which is a county-based program that all states have a cooperative extension. And so that's part of what's under that umbrella. And so UCIPM engages with our county-based advisors and staff as well. And we get a mix of our funding from state, federal, local, and donors. So we are always trying to look for sponsors and funding and get money to support our programs. And we will talk a little bit about that as we go on today. One of the things that is interesting that we want to always share about the statewide IPM program is that we were funded in 1979 through a California legislative bill passing that the statewide program get created in order to address the pest and pesticide needs of agriculture. And so we started off in 1979 with our first employees hired in 1980 to address agricultural pest management needs. So for the urban and community program, it was many years later until that portion of our focus was created. So we officially established the urban and community program in 2007. I was hired in 2006, so I've been around since then, helping shape how our program, tries to address the needs. So one of the things that we do is to help all kinds of residents and industry professionals in California to manage their pests. So we support both the residential audiences as well as growers, the large commercial growers, the small farm growers, urban agriculture. We engage with community leaders and pest management professionals in landscape, in structural, in all kinds of industries to make sure that folks have resources that they need to share pest management information with their clientele, to actually do their pest management as part of their job, or to answer questions. So in the urban unit, we provide training to structural and landscape professionals, folks that hold a pesticide license in the state of California to apply pesticides. We also provide training and resources to retail nursery and garden center staff that may sell pesticides to consumers or to unlicensed practitioners. We share information with public agencies, municipalities, schools, and also to Master Gardeners, the UC Master Gardeners. We do a lot of training and support for them because they answer directly questions from the public, which we in our 30 people for nearly 40 million California residents, we can't answer all those pest questions. So it really helps us to train others so that they can correctly answer questions from the general public about their pests and pesticide needs. And so our motto with UC IPM is to make science-based sustainable pest management information available to all Californians. And in the urban unit, we are constantly figuring out ways that we can share information to the various audiences that we have. And some of how we do that, we will talk about today. This is our team in the urban and community unit. So here's Andrew and myself. That's not the pointer. Here's the pointer. And then we have Lauren who's in the room here. And throughout the week, for those who are staying, you'll see the majority of the faces that are on here today. So we are around. And we are a small but mighty crew that tries to do our best to get information out there. So how we figure out what to address and how to address our needs in pest management, especially for our professional clientele in California, is that we are constantly doing needs assessments. When we started our program in 2006, and when each Andrew, myself, and our other advisors start, we do a formal needs assessment, reaching out to our clientele to find out what it is that they need from us. And that helps us formulate and shape our program. And then throughout the course of delivering these programs and resources, we are doing kind of informal needs assessments where we find out how things are going. And oh, you want videos now? Okay, we'll do that. Oh, you want webinars? Okay, we'll do that. So we're constantly trying to address and assess the needs of our different clientele. We survey California's pest control industry by either formal surveys that are structured and timed or through delivery of a program. We might survey them after the program is ended. And we're constantly doing this to assess how well we are addressing what their concerns are. Some of our common recurrent themes, and we'll touch on some of these today, are pests of public health significance. So in our urban and community areas, everyone deals with pests. We might have a mosquito issue, but we also might have pests in and around the home, as well as landscape pests. But pests of public health significance are top of our mind. We do talk a lot about pesticide use and exposure, both indoors and outdoors, and we address different changes in our California pesticide regulation. We are not regulators, but we do want to make sure we are sharing information with our clientele about changes to regulation. And we also address public sentiment, which may not be a change in regulation, but as I will talk about momentarily, shifts in attitudes about pesticides, either, folks not wanting pesticides in their environment or they themselves want to switch from something else. We are constantly navigating these kinds of shifts. So there's a lot that we need to keep up with and make sure we are continuing to address and assess. So on the regulatory area, one of the things that we'll sort of touch on today in our presentation, and you all might talk about too in the small groups, is some of the changes to regulation. In 2012, California changed or created a surface water regulation that limits the way pyrethroids are used around structures. And I'm not going to get into the details of that, but it was passed in 2012. We've been sharing information since. For those who might work in the structural area, there are still companies and folks that don't know about these regulations and what does it mean 3 feet up and a pin stream and spot treatment. So we are sharing information constantly through various sources to make sure that our professional clientele are complying with these regulations, not because we are enforcing them, but because we want to make sure that we are serving the needs and also to make sure that some of these materials stay in our IPM toolboxes if used correctly. Also, the fipronil issue that came around, I don't remember the year, but it wasn't a regulatory, it was a change in the labeling and also a restriction to the seasonal um, uh, allowability for when fipronil can be applied around structures. And so, again, continuing to educate folks on that. Two new laws that just came into effect this year, January 1st of 2025, are a change in the who's allowed to apply neonicotinoids, which is a class of insecticides some of you may be familiar with. And so this assembly bill basically prohibited most uses of neonicotinoid pesticide products by unlicensed individuals. So homeowners will no longer be able to apply neonicotinoids for tree, shrub, fruit tree, or turf themselves. In order to treat those areas, if they have a pest, they have to hire a licensed pest control operator to do that, pest control person. And there's a lot to that, and I can show you where we have resources that explain more on it. And then also the rodenticides, which have been increasingly restricted in California. The newest bill added further restrictions that basically limit first generation and second generation anticoagulant rodenticides for most uses in urban areas. And that's both for professionals and for homeowners. So that's just kind of an overall. I want to share with you a case study that I've been working on, and then Andrew will talk about two case studies that he has been working on, just to show you how we are addressing some of the needs that we hear about. So I've been doing research on organic herbicides, and this came about because there was a great need, as folks have been, I'm sure you've heard, lots of litigation and sentiment around the active ingredient glyphosate, or as everyone else calls it, Roundup, which isn't quite accurate. But no one here, I'm sure, is unfamiliar with the public sentiment. Roundup, or sorry, glyphosate as an active ingredient has not been restricted. It is not banned, but the public sentiment, which is again not regulatory, has made a lot of different practitioners need to change from using that herbicide to using something else. But we did not have at this time any good data on how these alternative products work. So as a trained entomologist, I went into the realm of herbicides. And that shows you how we can switch, what we are working on based on our needs. So I started looking at these different herbicides and also at the same time answering questions, especially by the public, of why do we even need to control weeds? Weeds are fine, they're just plants, let them be. Well, there's a lot of reasons to control weeds. I'll just first say fire. You have tall weeds and then they dry out, and then we have fires, and we're in California. No, thank you, right? We all know about our fire issues, but there's also lots of different reasons why we would want to control weeds. So when I talk to our professionals, I always make sure to mention this so that we remember why some of our pests need to be controlled. And it's not just because we want things to be pretty, it's often a functional issue. There are many different audiences who want to control their weeds, and even though folks may not want to use glyphosate, they may want to spray something. We do know that with IPM, there are many different choices for weed control, and we don't always have to talk about herbicides. And so in, addressing the needs of, oh, what can we switch to from glyphosate to something else? We always try to remind folks, well, there's non-chemical tools available that are also very effective. So let's not just focus on switching from one product to another. And that's, part of our IPM concept. So the research trials that I've been conducting, I started around 2019, trying to figure out a good site. Found a really great site at Sacramento State University. And they were very generous in letting me have the site for whenever I wanted. And I do have funding to do herbicide research and education in Sacramento County. And I kind of put it out there that I was doing some research and I got some products from different manufacturers. And even the makeup of the different organic herbicides available has been changing. So some of the active ingredients that I'll show you, some of those products are not even available anymore, but I'm not allowed to say product names. So I'm just going to show you ingredients. Some of the products that I tried are not organically acceptable per se, but they are ones that different municipalities especially have been using, and they wanted to know, how well they work in trials. And the ones that may not be organically acceptable are still lesser toxic and may not be the conventional herbicides. And so I kind of throw them into the organic herbicide mix. So I'm going to show you some data from a trial in 2021. The point of my talk today is not to get you to understand what everything of my trial means. I'll show you where you can read about it. It's just showing you this case study and how I'm addressing the needs. And so these are some of the active ingredients. And not to get into the nitty-gritty of this chart, but I am going to mention signal word, and whether something is organic or not is really important to many of the professionals that we talk to, because if they work for a city or a county that has an IPM plan and a policy that you will only use organic products or whatnot, that might be important, because not everything that is derived from a plant source is necessarily going to be organic, even though you might think it is. It's all in the formulation. The signal word is also a component to people's IPM policies, that they can only use products with a caution per se. Whereas a lot of these you can see are warning signal words, and that is important to communicate to our users. I will show you where you can find the actual products and the article that I wrote on this. So feel free to take pictures, but I do have more information that is linked elsewhere. So again, I'm just going to breeze through this. This is what my data looks like through visual rating of how well the product burned down the plant. All of these products are burned down materials. So my staff and I did visual ratings. So the product we burned down, and then the plants recovered. So we sprayed again and burned down, plants recovered. So this is the cycle. This is what we're seeing with these trials. And this is, we rated grasses, we rated broadleaves, and again, this is just to generally show you what we're doing. What I intend to do after this 2021 is do some more trials in different areas so we can have a more complete data set in order to draw some conclusions. So all of this is just sort of preliminary data right now while we do more trials so that we can say, okay, this is how these products work. And like I said, some of the products, the manufacturer has removed them from the market, either because they found that they didn't work well. So it's just this constantly moving target of, I do the research and then the product is not made anymore. Okay, so what's the next product, right? That is not my slide. That's very weird. I don't recognize this at all. Okay, they had some really pretty pictures here. I don't know where these came from. So that's interesting. Anyway, I was going to show you what our plots look like on the first day after treatment, the third day after treatment, so that you can get a visual. But this is a compilation from a colleague who was doing similar work down in the Fresno area at the same time. And so we communicated together to make sure that we could, share our results, which we did in an article in Capital. So this is to show you that on day one of after, so this is before spraying, this is the picture of what each of her plots look like. And at day one, she and I both visually assessed the burn down and the damage to the grasses and broadleaves in the area. And then after 2 days after treatment, 8 days, 14 days. So this shows you kind of what my chart did, that after a couple days of after treatment, you see the burn down effect, and then the plants start to regrow after 2 weeks. And at 3 weeks, this is the dip in mine. After 3 weeks, the plants have basically grown back, meaning that you would need to spray again. And she had two conventional products that she used that shows what we expect. After the first couple of days, it takes a while for the materials to build up systematically in the plant, and then the effects are seen later. So this is a really great chart to show you what my other slide would have shown you, similar results. Then the next thing we're doing, and again, this is in the article that I'll share, sharing the considerations for the people who are changing their products from maybe glyphosate to an organic herbicide or something similar, similar to organic, not similar to glyphosate. There are differences in the modes of action, in the signal word for them, how much personal protective equipment is needed, which I'll talk about in a second. And then also that visual injury. So for the contact herbicides, they work, some of them almost immediately. You can see burn down effect in an hour after spraying. And some of them take a day or two until they really start burning down. Whereas glyphosate takes a few days. So that's a difference. And then the frequency of application. So I showed you that after 2 or 3 weeks, right, the plants regrow. And so you have to spray again and spray again. Well, so that's something to consider. The amount of material, the labor cost, the amount of PPE. So the difference between spraying something and then coming back a month or two later for glyphosate and having to retreat versus having to spray every 2 to 3 weeks is a big change in how someone might use these organic herbicides versus the conventional materials. So in sharing that, I remind our landscapers about signal words, to remind them that signal words are important for acute toxicity. This might be in their IPM plan, it might not be, but everyone needs to protect themselves as applicators because some of these products, like some of 20% acetic acid and higher, they carry a danger signal word. And so they can burn your skin, they can burn your eyes, they can cause irreversible eye damage. And so we want to make sure that, sure, the data and how they work, but also protecting oneself when exposed. So that's a big component of what I do in sharing. And just to go through this, so this is a slide that I actually give. I talk to people about what PPE do they need to comply both with California regulations, but also what the signal word means. Because in California, if a product has a warning or a danger signal word, you have to not only have all of this equipment, but you also have to have coveralls. And the labels may not state that because labels are not made for only California use. And so we want to make sure that our practitioners are following the California regulations and also keeping themselves safe. And then one of the other things that we address very quickly is on our website, we are updating our UC IPM website with information to keep folks safe when they are using pesticides. So we have our pesticide active ingredient database, which we recently updated. And we have all kinds of herbicides listed there. And we've added some of these organic active ingredients. And in these pages, we share about potential hazards to water quality, any potential hazards to natural enemies, like honeybees in particular, and then also acute and chronic toxicity, as long as we know the measurements. And all of this data is from third-party sources where we pull in from. And we explain both how the product is used, and then further down on the page, we have some example products for both our residential and our professional audiences. So this is further down the page where we show some pests for which these materials will work, and also some of the hazards that we know. So we are constantly updating our online information as well as doing research. So here is the article in the UC IPM Green Bulletin. Who's subscribed to the Green Bulletin in this room? All right, by the end of the day, you all will. It's a great newsletter. It's 3 times a year for landscape and structural professionals. And Andrew's going to mention it too because he talks about this in his case studies, which are coming up next. So Andrew, if we want to come, and we will have time for questions when we're done here, but we are going to move on to Andrew's slides.